Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Volbeat, God of Angels Trust, out June 6th on Universal. This album has 10 tracks, 44 minutes in length, and this is the band's 9th full-length studio album. They are a Danish metal rock band. The design of this album is not surprising. I mean, if you've been listening to Volbeat for a long time, you get the feel like they always create records that have the idea of a record in mind. It's not just about the individual songs that make up the album, it's about how does the album feel and sound overall to the listener. This record is built in that same format. Obviously, the individual songs is what makes the overall record, but the record structure and design is put together in a way that enhances what the overall album's idea is all about and allows the listener to really focus on what the overall experience is giving back to the listener. So I really like the design from that standpoint. It stays true to the band and definitely allows the record to stand out as a record, not just a song here and there with a few ones just kind of becoming fillers. This record doesn't really have fillers. Every single song plays a very specific role in what the overall design is, and it allows the design of the album to be strong and therefore to have a strong album. As far as the sound is concerned, you need to break the sound on this album through two different parameters. The first thing that I noticed about this record is that it sounded almost like a greatest hits, and what I mean by that is that you can pinpoint every single song on this record and trace it back to a record within the band's discography and say that this song could fit on that album. There's not a single track on this record where you cannot do that. Every single song almost represents a record within the band's discography. Not to its fullest, and that's where the second part of the twist of the sound on this album comes in. Because every song, or almost every single song on this album, there are a few exceptions, has a jolt within the song that completely changes the dynamic of the track. And you get that from the guitars being a little bit heavier, a little bit thicker, where the solo is coming in, and even some vocal nuances within the tracks, and how some of the backing vocals work. All of these little pieces really change the dynamic of the individual songs and break away from the linearity that the song otherwise would have. So you have an album that has a shell, or each song has a shell that you can link back to a record within the band's discography. So there's a sense of comfort for the listener. There's a sense of understanding where the band is going because you're provided from the get-go, as the song opens up, a familiar sound and a familiar sound experience. The jolt within the track takes you in a different direction. So that allows you to make songs that are similar and yet different from anything the band has ever done before. So what you end up creating is a sound that connects the past, the present, and showcases the future. I think from that standpoint, this album is very unique. It has a unique perspective, but it still allows itself to be so grounded in what got the band to this place that it's going to be a lot easier for the fans to digest these differences. Had the songs not had that sense of familiarity around the changes, the album would become a lot more abrupt. It would have been a much more difficult record for a fan of the band to digest and feel comfortable with, because you would be a little bit in shock in terms of where is this record going? What are they trying to do? What is this album all about? There would have been so many questions to answer that the focus from the record was switched to what is happening. And you never want that on any album. You want the album to create doubt and questions in the mind of the listener, but in a positive way. And I feel like this album does just that. It connects the familiar sound with new nuances, creating a new experience, but still one that allows the listener to feel comfortable with. That is the overall sound on this record. Sound that has great production behind it, that has all the Volbeat DNA. I mean, there's not a single song on this album that starts off and you don't think you're listening to a Volbeat track. Every song on this album has that Volbeat DNA, sound experience, production behind it. That also helps make the album overall feel more concise, feel more together, and even more balanced, which I think it's a great thing considering all of the jolts that you're going to find built in within the individual songs. On an album that is very guitar focused, very guitar driven, with a lot of heaviness throughout the album, I honestly feel like there's some riffs on this record that could be considered a death metal riff. It's just presented in a more hard rock, metal style sound, style approach, and production behind it. Had they increased the thickness, even the density of some of these riffs, take it to a different style of production, like I said, some of them could have been on a death metal track. So this album has a lot of that throughout, and that's where those jolts really come in on this album, allowing the guitars to become more of a focal point of the record, sonically at least, and that also gives great quality to the album. It allows the album to be more rock and roll. And if we look at the discography of the band, some of their best albums are very guitar centric, very guitar focused, with giving the guitars a huge amount of canvas for them to create their designs, for them to expand on their art, and this record definitely does that. Now, the drum sound on the record is important because this album has big size. It has a big sound to it. It sounds like arena rock, it sounds like arena metal. It's an album that's built to be played in front of a massive audience. It's not pigeonhole. It's not a record that feels very narrow. And I think that has been something that is true with every Volbeat album. I think some of their best records, or some of my favorite records from Volbeat, have always had this large sound, this large presence, this amphitheater stadium style approach. And this album definitely does that, while still keeping the vocals in the forefront. And I think that's really important too, because in the mix, sometimes bands creating that big sound and that big volume, the vocals lose a little bit of predominance, and on this album they don't. The vocals still sit in the forefront, they still guiding everything that is happening, and they have that predominant podium where the sound is behind it, almost like pushing them forward. This, in my opinion, makes the album more of a Volbeat traditional style record from that standpoint, and that's exactly how I want a Volbeat record to sound. I want Michael's voice in the forefront because his voice is very unique, which is also another reason that Volbeat has a very unique experience. It's not just the way the guitars sound, it's not just the tonality, it's also his voice. Those two elements are the two main pillars of a Volbeat record, and you're going to get them on this album. By far my favorite album by Volbeat since Outlaw Gentlemen and Shady Ladies. I really like not only the nuances that the album offers from track to track, I love the fact that the album at times sounds like a throwback Volbeat record, and at times sounds like something Volbeat has never done before. The ability to merge these two worlds in one single album is really what sells me on this record, and is what makes this album excited to listen to. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Devils Are Awake. This is the opening track on the record, and it's somewhat of a prototypical Volbeat song, very heavy guitar riffing, and allowing that to be the predominant flow of the album and the predominant core element of the song. It's a song that's fluid with great drum sound that really complements at times the heavier and denser guitar sound, because the guitars on this track are not super clear, sharp. They don't have clear edges necessarily around them. They are a little bit more dense at times, and I think that is an important element that allows this track to work really well, because you have a chorus that slows down, feeling more like a hard rock style chorus, and then you have the verses being more of that Volbeat fast metal experience to it. So great track, has an epic solo. I mean, I don't think you could ask for more from an opening track on any given album. This track really sets the tone for a lot of the experiences that you're going to have down the line. Then you have Better Be Fueled Than Tamed. This is more of a rock track, more than a metal song. There are some heavier moments within this song, and the guitars do have some bite to them, and they have a nice heavy twang to it. But at the end of the day, this track is just rock and roll riffs. It's a very rock and roll riff-driven song, Volbeat style, with a great chorus, amazing guitar sound all around. Definitely a more direct track, hookier, catchier song, but you get that from that more exposure to just a pure rock and roll approach. Obviously with those heavier pockets within the track, one of those heavier pockets that leads into a solo, then quickly returning to this more fun rock and roll style approach. Such a dynamic song, such an energetic song that definitely stands out when you're listening to this record. Last but not least, definitely, I would say outside of the singles, this is my favorite song on the entire record, At the End of the Sirens. This is such a great guitar sounding song. I love the heaviness, I love the grooviness, I love the melody. There are definitely some death metal riffs on this track. They're just disguised more as rock riffs, but at the end of it, had the guitars been even heavier, had they been a little bit more dense, a little bit less produced. This could have totally been a death metal sounding song in terms of how that riff comes across, the main riff of the track comes across, and the impact that it has. Such guitar focus song with great vocals, really driven, really direct vocals, matching the ebbs and flows of the sound perfectly. Because I'll be surprised if this doesn't become an instant Volbeat classic. It's just one of those tracks. It just stands out with all of the things that you like about Volbeat. Catchiness, hookiness, almost radio friendly to a certain degree, fun to listen to, great guitars, great vocals. What else could you ask for? Great song all around. This is it, Volbeat, God of Angels Trust, once again out June 6th on Universal. Let me know your thoughts on the band. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.